is the second time it's happened with big videos and.
Look, I've met a number of people now who live in Shoalhaven Heads. They call it Fat Bikers Paradise. It's the most consistent beach I've ever ridden on. It doesn't have soft spots. It's just consistent compaction all the way along. So you can ride for 12 kilometres on the beach, or probably 15 if you head all the way down to the south end of Comerong Island. At low tide, you can ride any bike on it. I reckon you could definitely ride a cyclocross bike. You could probably even ride a road bike on it. But it's scenic, it's beautiful. It doesn't matter what the weather conditions are. It's just a beautiful place to ride. And you've also got the benefit that you've got a parallel bush track, single track, 10 plus, probably even 12 k's, a single track that runs parallel to the beach. So you can, whatever the tide's doing, you can ride one direction on the beach and the other direction in the bush. I don't think I've ever done the ride here without taking photos. Locals down here say to me, "Oh, where do you come from?" I said, "Oh, I've driven from Wollongong." "What, you've driven all that way just to ride here?" "Absolutely, any time." You guys have come a bit further and you've said similar. It's worth it. It's not a difficult technical ride, it's a scenic ride, it's a fun ride, it's a good workout too. You know, the sand, while it's firm, is still harder than riding on hard pack or bitumen.
It's been so windy the past few days, but feeling so nice right now. It's low tide, about 10 a.m. and we're here with Dave, Neil, and Liam up ahead, and Tim and Dave are behind us.
Ride that I would bring people. I know a mate of mine who has two girls who are 8 and 10. He brought them down. He asked me if they could ride the bush track, and I said absolutely, but if the tide's right, they could ride the beach as well on standard mountain bikes, and they did, and they had a ball. Loved it. So it's a trail, a loop for anyone.
Yeah. Nice and flat.
It all started when my eldest came to us and said, "I want to change schools." I went, "Why?" He said, "I want to go to TIGS, which is the Illawarra Grammar School." I said, "Why?" We had to dig quite a bit. He said, "Because they've got a mountain bike team." Now, it's the most expensive school in Wollongong by quite a long way. And I said, maybe there's other ways we could get into mountain biking. How about we join the local club? And that's what we did. We joined Wollongong Mountain Bike Club. The first ride we ever did was Moraila Pass social ride with the club. He was on his Mongoose Crocodile, and I was on a Malvern Star Hybrid. And my memory of that ride was the first time I'd ever smelt hot push bike disc brakes. And my next step after that was to start inquiring about buying a proper mountain bike. And I ended up buying one second hand from a lady who was the secretary of the club at the time. And I rode that bike for 3 or 4 years. We were then very quickly into racing with the club regularly. Me and David would have been 13. Liam fairly quickly tagged along on his giant boulder. David bought a second-hand giant ATX, something or other from about 20 years ago, that he got cheap because it was all he could afford. He wanted to do downhill racing. He humoured me by doing cross-country racing with me. And one of the things I've really noticed over the last 13 or so years since then is that back then I was riding with a lot of other parents who were riding with their kids, going to races, more races than social rides, but club races. It wasn't high-level racing at all. Everyone was just there having fun, encouraging their kids, doing stuff together, and there were lots and lots of parents. So there was sort of that demographic of sort of 40 to 45-year-old parents with 12 to 15, 16-year-old kids. And I guess that got me the bug. I really enjoyed getting out in the bush, always enjoyed the bush, but getting out on a bike, getting exercise, challenging myself, getting the satisfaction of doing a little bit faster on a lap, getting up a technical section that I've tried 50 times and finally made it. And then as my boys got older, we went through that phase of actually racing together then as a team. We did a few races as a three-man team, particularly with Nowra Club. I remember the first time, it was probably the first time we did that race. It's a three-man team, 6-hour race at Kundu. And David came in off a lap and said to me, "Dad, I beat your time." I said, "I don't think so." I was looking at the official time on the clock. He was looking at his bike computer. And he hadn't beaten me that lap, but he's beaten me ever since. He would have been maybe 14. He then went off and he became a very competitive downhiller. And so I then started doing a lot more riding and racing with Liam. And for, it's going back 6-7 years ago now, Liam and I started doing the Chocolate Foot 7-hour series together as a pair, which was not competitive at one level because we were racing in the open male category with me as a supermaster over 50 and him as a junior. But that was the only category that we could fit in. So we were racing against all the top level guys and just happy to finish and have fun. But we go away for a weekend, camp out, go to the pub for dinner, race all day Sunday and come home. And just great father-son time. And it's just continued from there. I thought, well, I'm going to keep doing that. In fact, when Liam was in his HSC year, he said, "I can't commit to doing that series with you." So I contacted a mate who I knew was similar age to me, so we could actually race Supermasters together. And we raced for 2 or 3 years together in the Chocolate Foot series until that finished. Did a few Rocky Trail, 7 hours as well. And haven't looked back. I have a mate in Sydney who I grew up with, who's a year or two older than me, has been blind since he was a baby. When he was a teenager, I didn't know him, early teenager, he used to ride a push bike with his mates and they would look out for cars. He's always used a sonar, clicking with his tongue, to pick up echoes, and so he could ride by himself no problem, but a car couldn't. So he could pick up stuff around him from the echo, but he couldn't pick up cars coming at high speed. So his mates would scream out, and he used to tell stories of cars pulling up and saying, "What are you doing? Are you blind or something?" And he'd say, "Yep." Maybe 10, 15 years after I first met him, and I'd been living in Wollongong for a while, I just had this idea of, I'd done the Sydney to Gong ride a few times with my son, both of them in the end, and I just rang him up one day and I said, "Hey Jeff, if I get a tandem, would you do the Sydney to Gong ride with me?" And he said, "Oh, yeah, okay." And so I started looking a bit more seriously to find a tandem, and bought my first tandem off eBay, straight out of China for $500, and it was the crappiest bike I've ever had. It was heavy, uncomfortable, but it was a way to try out tandem riding. And Jeff and I did the Sydney to Gong ride on that bike 2 or 3 times, and it was great. Had some real experiences with him. Learning on, you've got to work together on a tandem, you've got to communicate heaps, especially on cheap tandems that don't have fixed chain between front and rear cranks. The cheap one had a spring-loaded tensioner on the rear chain, and if you didn't communicate and one stopped pedalling and the other one kept going, the chain came off. The first ride we did, we had the chain come off about 20 times. So we learnt from that. I think my most memorable experience with him was coming down. First or second year we did the ride, we didn't do the full distance. We only did the sort of Heathgate to Wollongong. And at the start, I said to him, "Oh, you need to use the toilets. They got a stack of Portaloos." "Oh, no, I'm right." We got down into the national park, coming down through long descent.
Oh, that descent is.
And you've got ridge on the left-hand side above you, and a steep just drop to your right. And halfway down this, he says, "Oh, I probably should have gone to the toilet, Tim. Is there anywhere I can stop and do a wee?" And I said, "Not really, because it's too steep above us on the left and too steep below us on the right. I'll pull up when we can." Anyway, so we pulled up not too far later, and he got off the bike and found his way into the bush. Then he calls out, "Oh, Tim, I've dropped your glove. I think I might have weed on it. Can you come and help me find it?" I'll never forget that. There was a positive that ride too, because it rained that morning, and as we rode down into the national park, you got all that smell from the bush after fresh rain.
Yeah.
And as we're riding down the hill, he's going, "Oh, that smells so good." Can't see a thing, but he's getting all of that. And it just, I've done lots of things with Jeff over the years, and that was one really memorable one of, just appreciating that you don't have to have sight to appreciate what's going on around you. And so that got me started tandem riding. A couple of years later, I'm on the Illawarra Bike User Group email list, and there was an email came through to the group saying, "Hey, I'm legally blind, just moved to Wollongong from Armidale, used to ride a tandem in Armidale with a sighted guy on the front, but couldn't bring my tandem down from Armidale. Anybody in Wollongong got a tandem and interested in riding with me?" And I messaged back to this guy and said, "Hey, yeah, look, I've got a tandem, been riding with another blind mate, happy to catch up with you." And we met, you came out with me that day, didn't you, Liam? We went to McDonald's and had a coffee with him to meet him. Just when we met Andrew. Yeah, Dapto McDonald's. Andrew and I rode for probably 5 or 6 years like that. And within the year of us first starting that, another blind guy in Wollongong started up a group called Excite Tandems. He's blind himself, and he wanted to get the group going to give people who couldn't ride by themselves an opportunity to ride. It's not just blind people. I've ridden with a kid on the back with Down syndrome, which was an interesting experience because he was quite a chunky guy, and he realised he could steer the bike by swinging his body around on the back. And I was trying to tell him no, and he got a bit upset. Fortunately, his brother was riding along beside us, and he was able to calm him down. There was another guy who used to ride with the group that had cerebral palsy, I think, and had to have his feet strapped in. But again, it was good exercise for him, and he couldn't ride by himself. So I've ridden for many years with Excite. I haven't ridden actively with them for a little while now, but I still keep up with them. Yeah, look, it's, as I say, it was a group set up by another Jeff to get people out who couldn't ride by themselves. And yeah, look, it would be. I can put you on to Jeff Stratton. Yeah, awesome fun. Had some great experiences with them. We caught up with two blind guys from Brisbane, did a fundraising rise. I think the fundraising was actually for Vision Australia. Yeah. They rode from Perth to Sydney on tandems. With two sighted mates on the front on two Cannondale Road tandems, and we met them at Moss Vale and rode from Moss Vale to Sydney with them over 2 days, with 3 or 4 tandems out of Wollongong. And I was driver for the first day with the trailer on the back and support crew, and then the second day I jumped on a bike, and fascinating talking with those guys, riding along the Nullarbor and having emus coming along and running beside them. Things like that. Yeah, but no, I'm an advocate for tandem riding as well.
Like it.
Got closer to Shoalhaven. One of the trees that came down in the windstorm